Every 66 seconds, someone over 60 in the US is told they have dementia. Think about that. By the time you finish watching this video, dozens of seniors will hear those life-changing words. But here's the part that no one talks about. What if the real culprit isn't just age, or genetics, or bad luck? What if the danger is hiding right inside your own medicine cabinet? Doctors are sounding the alarm. They found 9 common medications, everyday pills that millions of seniors trust, that could be quietly damaging your memory. Pills that may be slowly stealing names, faces, and moments that mean the most to you. All while you think they're keeping you healthy. And listen, the third one on this list shocked even me, because it's something so ordinary, so widely prescribed, that you might not think twice about it. Yet it could be shrinking your brain's memory center in less than a year. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only know what these medications are, but also what steps you can take to protect yourself and the people you love. Dementia is growing at a pace we've never seen before. Right now, more than 55 million people around the world are living with it, and that number is expected to nearly double in the next 2 decades. Every year, millions of families watch their loved ones fade a little more, not because of who they are, but because of what's happening inside their brains. And here's something you need to hear. Seniors are at the very center of this crisis. Why? Because after 60, most people are taking more than one prescription medication. Some are for blood pressure, some for sleep, others for pain, or simply to make life more manageable. But when these pills are stacked together, taken day after day, year after year, their side effects don't just add up, they overlap. And that overlap can quietly erode memory and speed up cognitive decline. Now think about this for a moment. Losing your memory isn't just about forgetting where you left your glasses or misplacing your keys. It's not just about struggling to recall a word mid-sentence. It's about losing pieces of yourself. The laughter of your grandchildren, the stories of your childhood, the simple comfort of recognizing your own home. That's what's truly at stake here. But here's the good news, and it's important you hold on to this. Some of these risks can be reversed. Memory loss tied to certain medications isn't always permanent. When the right changes are made, the brain often shows remarkable resilience. That means there is hope, real tangible hope, if you know what to look for, and if you act before it's too late. Before we dive into the list, I want to hear from you. What medications are you taking every day? Have you noticed brain fog, sudden forgetfulness, or maybe changes in your mood since starting them? Share your story in the comments below. Don't hold back. Your experience could be the very thing that helps another senior or family member recognize what's happening in their own life. And here at Senior Strong Living, we make it a point to read and respond, because your voice matters. Now, let's begin with the first medication on our list. One that's so common, most seniors have it sitting in their cabinet right now. Let's start with one of the most overlooked culprits, that tiny pink pill many people keep right on their nightstand. You probably know it as Benadryl, the drug most often taken for allergies, or as a quick fix to help you sleep. Its medical name is diphenhydramine, but what really matters is the class of drugs it belongs to, anticholinergics. Here's why that matters. Your brain depends on a chemical messenger called acetylcholine. Think of it as the brain's memory spark plug. It helps your mind store new memories, recall old ones, and stay sharp in conversations. But anticholinergics, like Benadryl, block this spark plug. And when that signal gets blocked night after night, year after year, it's like turning the lights down in the brain's memory center. Take Mary, a 72-year-old retired teacher. Every evening she reached for Benadryl to help her sleep. At first, it seemed harmless. But after a few years, she began losing track of her appointments. She misplaced her keys almost daily. Her family thought it was just normal aging. But the truth? It was the pill she trusted to help her rest. And the science backs this up. Research shows that seniors who take anticholinergic drugs regularly have a 54% higher risk of developing dementia. 54%. That's not a small increase. That's a life-altering risk from something as ordinary as a sleep aid. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying everyone who takes Benadryl will develop dementia overnight. But the warning signs are too strong to ignore. And yet, millions of seniors still take it without knowing the price it could be exacting on their memory. And here's the really troubling part. Benadryl is just the beginning. If a simple allergy pill can have such a dramatic effect on your memory, imagine what happens with medications taken every single day for years. The next drug on our list is one of the most prescribed medications in the world, and while it may calm your heartburn, it could be slowly starving your brain. Let's talk about that next. Number 8 on our list is one of the most commonly prescribed medications in the world, acid reflux drugs. You might know them as Nexium, Prilosec, or Protonix. They're part of a class called proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs for short. Now, millions of seniors take these pills every single day for heartburn or acid reflux. And on the surface, it feels like a blessing. No more burning in the chest, no more sleepless nights after a heavy meal. But here's the hidden cost. PPIs don't just block stomach acid, they also block the absorption of two nutrients your brain desperately needs, vitamin B12 and magnesium. Without enough B12, your neurons, the tiny messengers in your brain, can't fire properly. Without enough magnesium, those same neurons lose their ability to communicate smoothly. The result? Foggy thinking, slower reactions, and eventually, memory problems that can look a lot like dementia. Take George, a 68-year-old veteran. For more than a decade, he relied on a daily PPI to keep his reflux under control. But over time, he began to feel constantly tired, forgetful, and disconnected. At first, he brushed it off as getting older. But when his doctor finally checked his blood, his B12 levels had plummeted. The culprit? His heartburn medication. And the data is sobering. In a study of adults over 75, long-term users of PPIs had a 44% greater risk of developing dementia. Think about that. Nearly half again as likely, just from staying on a medication many believe is harmless. Here's the reality. These drugs were never designed to be taken for years and years. But too often, seniors are kept on them indefinitely, without anyone stopping to ask what's happening to their brains in the process. And here's the kicker. When George's medication was reduced and his vitamin levels restored, his clarity started to come back. Which shows us something powerful. The damage isn't always permanent. But only if the problem is caught in time. So yes, a pill that calms your stomach can also cloud your memory. And as concerning as that is, the next medication on our list takes things even further. It's prescribed to stop embarrassing bathroom trips. But instead, it may be quietly blocking your brain's ability to remember altogether. Let's talk about that. Number 7 is one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: bladder control medications. Drugs like oxybutynin are often prescribed to help with overactive bladder, those sudden urges, the embarrassing leaks, the nightly trips to the bathroom that disrupt your sleep. And for many seniors, the promise sounds wonderful. Take a pill, gain back your freedom, and stop worrying about accidents. But here's the part most people never hear. These drugs don't just work on your bladder. They cross directly into the brain and block the very signals your memory depends on. Imagine your brain as a highway system, with messages constantly racing back and forth. Now picture putting up roadblocks along those highways. That's what bladder control drugs do to your memory pathways. Let me give you a story that hits close to home. Helen, a 70-year-old grandmother, started oxybutynin after struggling with daily bladder issues. At first, it felt like a lifesaver. She could go out without fear, she slept better, she felt normal again. But within months, something changed. She began pausing mid-conversation, struggling to recall the names of family members, even forgetting her own granddaughter's name during a holiday gathering. Her family worried it was Alzheimer's. But it wasn't. It was the medication meant to give her life back. And Helen's case isn't unique. Research shows that seniors who take these bladder control drugs face almost a 50% higher risk of developing dementia after just 1 year. 1 year. Now, think about that. What starts as a pill to solve a quality-of-life issue can end up quietly robbing you of the very memories that make life worth living. This is why awareness is everything. Because what looks like the beginning of dementia may, in fact, be a side effect of a prescription. And here's the hope. When the drug is reduced or replaced, memory often improves. But only if someone recognizes the warning signs. So yes, a bladder pill can interfere with your brain in devastating ways. But the next medication we're about to discuss is even more surprising. It's one of the most prescribed drugs on the planet. Millions take it to protect their hearts. but few realize it could be quietly weakening their brains. Let's move on to number 6. Number 6 might come as a real shock, because it's one of the most prescribed classes of drugs in the world: statins. You probably know them as Lipitor, Crestor, or Zocor, medications given to lower cholesterol and protect the heart. And on the surface, it makes perfect sense. Lower cholesterol, lower the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Doctors prescribe them by the millions. Seniors stay on them for decades. But here's what's rarely explained: cholesterol isn't just a villain. Your brain actually needs cholesterol to function properly. It's a vital building block for nerve cells. It helps those cells send signals to one another. Signals that make memory, thinking, and learning possible. Now, imagine cutting off that supply for years on end. That's what long-term statin use can do. It lowers cholesterol not only in the blood, but also in the brain, leaving your nerve signals weaker and slower. Take Robert, a 75-year-old grandfather who had been on statins for nearly a decade. One afternoon, after his usual trip to the grocery store, he got lost on the way home, a route he had driven hundreds of times before. At first, his family thought it was just a senior moment. But over time, those moments piled up. The heartbreaking truth was that the medication meant to protect his heart may have been harming his memory. And the research is backing this up. A 2023 study found that seniors who used statins for just 3 years had a 26% higher risk of memory problems. 26%. That's a big jump for drugs handed out so routinely. Here's the problem: because statins are seen as life-saving, few question the trade-offs. And yet, for some seniors, those trade-offs mean losing clarity, independence, and confidence. Of course, no one's saying to stop these medications suddenly. That can be dangerous. But what you should know is this: if memory issues develop, it's worth asking your doctor whether statins might be playing a role, and whether safer alternatives exist. So yes, the very pills designed to keep your heart healthy could also be undermining your brain. And as concerning as that is, the next medication on our list goes even further. Millions of seniors take it for something as simple as sleep or anxiety. But over time, it may leave the brain sluggish, confused, and vulnerable to Alzheimer's. Let's talk about number 5. Number 5 is a group of medications many seniors quietly rely on: benzodiazepines. You might recognize them as Xanax, Valium, or Ativan. They're often prescribed for sleep problems, anxiety, or stress. And at first, they feel like a lifesaver, calming the mind, slowing racing thoughts, and making sleep finally possible. But here's what the commercials and even some doctors don't always emphasize. Over time, these drugs don't just calm the mind, they slow the brain itself. They create memory gaps, confusion, and in the long run, they may actually increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Imagine your brain as a bright, busy city at night. Benzodiazepines dim the lights, quiet the traffic, and slow everything down. That might feel good for a moment of peace. But when taken night after night, year after year, it means fewer connections are firing, and memory starts to fade. Let me share a real story. Linda, a 69-year-old widow, turned to Xanax after losing her husband. At first, it helped her sleep through the night. But a year later, she described her days as a fog. She struggled to follow conversations, lost interest in activities she once loved, and often said she didn't feel like herself anymore. What she didn't realize was that the very pill she leaned on for comfort was slowly changing her brain. The numbers are hard to ignore. A long-term study following thousands of seniors found that those who used benzodiazepines regularly were 51% more likely to develop Alzheimer's. That's more than half again as likely, from a medication many people assume is safe. And here's the cruel twist: the longer you stay on them, the harder it becomes to stop, because your brain begins to depend on them. It's a cycle that too many seniors find themselves trapped in. So yes, these medications may bring short-term calm, but at what cost? Over time, they can steal away the very clarity and independence that matter most. And if you think that's alarming, wait until you hear about number 4. It's an older antidepressant, still prescribed today for pain and insomnia, and it's considered one of the strongest memory-killing drugs of them all. Number 4 takes us back to an older generation of antidepressants, medications like amitriptyline. Even though newer options are available, this drug is still widely prescribed, often not for depression at all, but for chronic pain, nerve pain, or insomnia. Now, here's the part most seniors don't realize. Amitriptyline is one of the strongest anticholinergic drugs there is. And remember what we talked about earlier? Anticholinergics block acetylcholine, that vital messenger your brain uses to form and keep memories. With amitriptyline, that block is powerful and relentless. Picture a library where the lights go out, one section at a time. At first, you might only lose access to a few shelves. But as time goes on, entire wings of the library grow dark. That's what this drug can do to the brain's memory pathways when it's taken night after night, year after year. One senior woman I'll never forget shared how she was prescribed amitriptyline for back pain. At first, it dulled the aches enough to help her rest. But slowly, she noticed herself struggling to find words in conversations. She paused more often, searching for names she used to recall instantly. Her family thought dementia was setting in. But the real cause was her nightly pill. And the research is sobering. Long-term use of amitriptyline is strongly linked to steady, measurable cognitive decline. Even low nightly doses can wear away at memory over time. Now, does that mean no one should ever take it? Not exactly. For some, it may be the only thing that brings relief. But it does mean seniors need to know the risks, and to ask their doctors about safer alternatives whenever possible. Because here's the truth. If a medication meant to ease pain can instead dim your memory, that's not just a side effect. That's a trade-off with your very identity. And the surprising part? Amitriptyline isn't the only antidepressant that poses a threat. In fact, the next one on our list, number 3, shocked even us. It's prescribed to millions of seniors for anxiety and depression, yet it quietly blocks the brain's memory system in a way that can be devastating. Let's move on. Number 3 might be the most surprising of them all, because it's an antidepressant many seniors still take without a second thought. Its name is paroxetine, but you probably know it by its brand name, Paxil. Now, antidepressants are often seen as helpful tools, and for many, they are. But here's the catch, not all of them work the same way. Unlike most of the drugs in its class, Paxil has strong anticholinergic effects, the very same brain-blocking properties we've been warning about throughout this video. That means while it's prescribed to lift mood and ease anxiety, it may also be quietly interfering with your brain's ability to form and keep memories. Let me tell you about Martha, a 66-year-old who began taking Paxil for anxiety. Within a year, she noticed she couldn't focus on simple tasks the way she used to. She would walk into a room and forget why she was there. She lost her train of thought in conversations with friends. It wasn't until she switched to a different antidepressant, one without those memory-blocking effects, that her clarity slowly started to return. And Martha's story is far from unique. In one review of seniors on Paxil, researchers found a 30% greater risk of memory decline compared to those on other antidepressants. 30%. That's a huge difference, and it raises a serious question. Why is this drug still so commonly given to older adults? The reality is, most seniors aren't told about the specific risks of Paxil. They trust their prescription, fill their pill boxes, and never suspect that the fogginess, the forgetfulness, or the lack of focus might be coming from the very drug they believe is helping them. And here's where you need to pause and think. If a medication meant to protect your mental health is also stealing away your memory, is that really protection at all? Now, as troubling as this is, Paxil isn't the end of the story. Because next on our list, number 2, are medications that were never even designed for seniors in the first place. They were created for serious mental illness, yet they're often handed out for sleep, agitation, or confusion. And the effects on memory. Devastating. Let's talk about that. Number 2 is one of the most troubling categories of all, antipsychotic medications. Names like Seroquel, Risperdal, and Zyprexa. These drugs were originally designed for serious psychiatric conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Yet today, they're often prescribed to seniors for reasons far outside their original purpose, to calm agitation, to reduce confusion, or even just to help with sleep. On the surface, that might sound harmless, even helpful. But the reality is far more concerning. Antipsychotics work by powerfully altering brain chemistry, and while that can reduce agitation, it also dulls cognition. Seniors on these drugs often become withdrawn, sedated, and unrecognizable to their loved ones. I've heard families describe it as watching their loved one turn into a shadow of themselves. They're still physically present, but their personality feels locked away. It's heartbreaking, and worse, research shows these medications don't just mask memory problems. They may accelerate cognitive decline and significantly increase the risk of stroke and sudden death in older adults. Let me share an example. A family once told me about their father who had been placed on Seroquel to help with restlessness at night. Within weeks, they noticed he was less responsive. He stopped laughing at his grandchildren's jokes. He sat quietly in his chair, staring at the television but not really seeing it. They described him as zombified. And they were mourning his personality, even though he was still alive. And the science supports what they saw. Studies consistently show that seniors on antipsychotics decline faster, both mentally and physically, compared to those not on them. These are powerful drugs with powerful consequences. Here's the bottom line. If your loved one has been prescribed one of these medications, it's not something to ignore. Ask questions. Push for alternatives. Because while these drugs may quiet agitation, they often do so at the devastating cost of memory, clarity, and quality of life. And as alarming as this sounds, the most dangerous situation of all isn't tied to a single drug. It's something even more hidden, and it's happening to countless seniors every day. It's what happens when these memory-blocking drugs are combined. That's number one on our list, and it's a risk too few people know about. And here we are at number one, the most dangerous risk of all. And surprisingly, it isn't a single drug. It's what happens when several of them are taken together. Doctors call it polypharmacy, but you can think of it as a hidden burden on the brain. Imagine this. A senior takes Benadryl at night to sleep, oxybutynin during the day for bladder control, and amitriptyline for pain. Each one on its own raises dementia risk. But taken together, they don't just add up, they multiply. It's like stacking heavy weights on a fragile bridge. Eventually, the bridge can't hold. Research confirms this. In a massive study of more than 280,000 older adults, those with the highest anticholinergic burden, meaning they were on multiple memory-blocking drugs, had a 120% greater risk of developing dementia within 10 years. 120%. That's more than double the risk. And here's the scariest part. Most seniors don't even know they're on these combinations. They trust each prescription on its own, not realizing how dangerous they become when taken together. But there is hope, and this is so important to remember. Unlike other forms of dementia, memory loss tied to polypharmacy is often reversible. When doctors carefully reduce or replace these medications, many seniors notice improvements in clarity, focus, and memory in just weeks or months. The brain, when given the chance, can heal. So yes, the hidden danger isn't one single pill. It's the silent stacking of multiple prescriptions. And it's happening every day, often without warning, and often without seniors or their families realizing the price that's being paid. But now that you know, you have the power to ask questions, to start conversations, and to take steps that could protect not just your memory, but your independence and your quality of life. Now, after hearing all of this, it would be easy to feel worried, maybe even hopeless. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Your brain is far more resilient than you might think. I've seen seniors who were once foggy, forgetful, even convinced they were slipping into dementia, completely turn things around once the right changes were made to their medications. Take George, the veteran we talked about earlier. When his doctor finally recognized that his reflux pill had drained his vitamin B12 levels, they adjusted his treatment, boosted his nutrients, and within weeks his memory improved. Or Helen, who was terrified she was losing herself to Alzheimer's, only to discover that her bladder medication was the real culprit. Once it was reduced, her clarity began to return. These stories remind us of something powerful. Not all memory loss is permanent. Sometimes, it's the result of hidden side effects. And when those side effects are addressed, the fog can lift. Conversations become easier, daily tasks less overwhelming, and life begins to feel familiar again. That's why it's so important to take action. Talk with your doctor or pharmacist. Ask them to review every single medication you're on, not just the prescriptions, but the over-the-counter pills too. Questions as simple as, does this drug affect memory? Or, is there a safer alternative? can open the door to better choices. And don't forget, you are not powerless in this. Protecting your brain is not only possible, it starts with awareness. By paying attention to what you put into your body, by asking questions, and by speaking up for yourself, you can make choices that help preserve your memory, your independence, and your quality of life. Now, after hearing all of this, it would be easy to feel worried, maybe even hopeless. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Your brain is far more resilient than you might think. I've seen seniors who were once foggy, forgetful, even convinced they were slipping into dementia, completely turn things around once the right changes were made to their medications. Take George, the veteran we talked about earlier. When his doctor finally recognized that his reflux pill had drained his vitamin B12 levels, they adjusted his treatment, boosted his nutrients, and within weeks his memory improved. Or Helen, who was terrified she was losing herself to Alzheimer's, only to discover that her bladder medication was the real culprit. Once it was reduced, her clarity began to return. These stories remind us of something powerful. Not all memory loss is permanent. Sometimes, it's the result of hidden side effects. And when those side effects are addressed, the fog can lift. Conversations become easier, daily tasks less overwhelming, and life begins to feel familiar again. That's why it's so important to take action. Talk with your doctor or pharmacist. Ask them to review every single medication you're on, not just the prescriptions, but the over-the-counter pills too. Questions as simple as, does this drug affect memory? Or, is there a safer alternative? Can open the door to better choices. And don't forget, you are not powerless in this. Protecting your brain is not only possible, it starts with awareness. By paying attention to what you put into your body, by asking questions, and by speaking up for yourself, you can make choices that help preserve your memory, your independence, and your quality of life. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these medications surprised you the most? Was it the common allergy pill, the reflux drug, or maybe one of the antidepressants? Have you or someone you love noticed changes in memory, focus, or mood after starting one of these prescriptions? Share your story in the comments. Don't hold back. Your words might be the wake-up call another senior or family needs right now. At Senior Strong Living, we read through your comments because every voice matters. This isn't just a channel, it's a community, a place where your experience can make a real difference in someone else's life. Here at Senior Strong Living, our mission is simple: to bring you the truth about senior health, the kind of advice that isn't always talked about in the doctor's office, but can change the way you live each day. We believe that growing older should never mean losing yourself. It should mean staying strong, staying informed, and protecting the moments that matter most. And that's why we create these videos, to give you the knowledge, the tools, and the confidence to take charge of your health. So if you found value here, know that you're part of a family of seniors, caregivers, and loved ones who all want the same thing: to live longer, healthier, and stronger together. If this video opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a spouse, or anyone you care about. You never know whose memory you might help protect. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Senior Strong Living. Every week we bring you practical, honest advice to help you age strong, live with confidence, and hold on to the moments that make life worth living. And remember, your story matters. Drop your experiences, questions, or even your worries in the comments below. Together, we can build a conversation that saves memories, one family at a time. Stay informed. Stay strong. Stay living.